Hi everybody, my name is Graeme from Scotland Stories, and I'm delighted to share with you one of my favourite stories, all the way from the Shetland Isles. It's about a creature that's rarely found anywhere else in Scotland, as well as a simple message that we should all be kind to each other. And there was once a woman called Mallie, who lived with her husband and her two wee bairns. Her husband was only really there for half the year though. Every summer he would head off to sea and work on the ships. He would return at the start of winter with enough money to fill their chest with flour and a barrel with salted herring. Mallie did a wee bit of work on the side, but generally that was enough to do them and the kids throughout the year. And in one winter, Mallie's husband didn't come home. She waited and waited, and news eventually came. The ship had gone down, and with it, the money they needed to fill their bellies. Mallie, when she looked in the chest, it was empty, apart from a few spiders' webs. And peeking into the barrel, there was just some salty water, a few scales at the bottom. That was it. There was no other option. She was going to have to go and beg for the charity of her neighbours. There weren't very many houses within easy walking distance, and most people had little to spare anyway. But Mallie and her oldest son went up a wee hill to a cottage. There was an old woman lived there who'd always done very well for herself. She opened the door and Mallie explained her husband had been lost at sea, she didn't have any money to feed the two bairns, and while she was talking her son was peering through the door having a wee nosy. He saw the pantry door was open. Inside there was bread and ham and cheese and jars of jam, and he was in danger of creating a puddle on the doorstep with how much he was drooling at the sight. But the old lady, she just said, "Oh no, I'm just a poor old woman. I can barely afford to feed myself, never mind beggars like you." And she just slammed the door in her face. But a wee boy, he was close to tears. He said, "Mum, did you see all the food she had back there? Why would she not want to help us?" And Mallie replied that that's just how some people are, lad. Not everybody wants to share what they have, but remember, that's not our way. We're better than that, and we would always help somebody in need. And then they trudged on home, and they got set for another hungry evening. When things got dark, and it gets dark very early in the Shetland winter, Mallie heard a knock at the door. It's a bit odd, she thought. It doesn't have very many neighbours, but then again, maybe the old woman had changed her mind. So she opened the door. There was a strange-looking wee man in front of her. "Oh, I'm very sorry to bother you," he said. "I've been walking all day. I was wondering if you maybe had just a wee bite to eat." Mallie sighed. "I wish I could help you, but we've got nothing to eat ourselves. Honestly, I'm so sorry, but you might have better luck if you just carry on down the road a wee bit." "Oh, I couldn't go another step. My feet are worn out. Is there any chance I could just kip here for one night?" "Of course, certainly. In you come, in you come. Get yourself warmed up by the fire." Well, the wee man, he settled into a chair by the fire and he took in the room around him. He spied a couple of hungry faces watching from the box bed. "Come on now," said the visitor. "You must have something to eat here, surely." Well, Mallie had her suspicions as to who her guest was, and she didn't really want to disappoint a Trow, so she went to double check. And she opened the chest and she used a wee knife and she scraped off any of the wee crusty bits that were caked into the corners, and in reality it was mostly just dust and spider's webs. And she took some of the salty, scaly water from the fish barrel and she mixed it all together and made a kind of pasty gruel. And 4 bowls were handed out. And Mallie and the bairns, they slurped this stuff down like it was Michelin-starred dining. The wee man, on the other hand, he just sniffed it and asked, "What exactly is this meal you've given me?" "That's the only thing we've eaten for 2 days. You're very welcome to it, though." And not wanting to be rude, the wee man, he stuffed it down his throat. It was time for bed, and Mallie said to him, "Look, the one thing we do have plenty of is peat for burning. So you keep that fire going strong and have yourself a good night's sleep." And then in the morning, Mallie, she found the wee man all ready to leave. And as he opened the door, he said, "Mallie, it takes a special kind of person to share the only food they have in the world with a complete stranger. So for that, I give you my blessing." Now, if she wasn't sure if it was a Trow before, it was pretty clear now. blessed with her good deed, but aware that blessings don't fill bellies, Mallie was wondering what she was going to do to fix the problem today. But the basket of peat was getting low, so she filled it up from the outside store and set to work getting the fire going. First things first, you need small bits to not smother the flames. So she picked up a chunk of peat and she snapped it in half. And ting! Something fell out. What are the chances it was a gold coin? Well, Mallie picked up another chunk of peat and ting! Another coin. And every piece she broke, there was a coin hiding inside. She called her son over and she handed him all the money. She said, right, run to the store with a basket, bring back some bread and cheese, some meat, bacon, definitely bacon. We could do with some veg and fruit and just anything you want, just get anything. Well, Mallie had never eaten so well, and she gave a little prayer of thanks to the Trow. But the old lady up the hill, she wasn't so happy. Days ago, Mallie had been at her door begging, and now she's got gold coins coming out of her ears. She was going to find out where this cash was coming from. And that night she crept outside Mallie's window, and inside she saw a gold coin after another popping out of those chunks of peat. Ah, that's her trick, is it? She must have stashed that all away so nobody would find it. I deserve some of that gold just as much as she does. Then throughout the depth of the night, little old lady, she filled a cart with all of the peat from Mallie's shed and she brought it back to her own cottage. There she had a big grin on her face as she picked up a chunk and she broke it in half. Squeak! That wasn't a coin that fell out. That was a mouse. Right, that must have been a duff one. Right, next piece. Squeak! That's strange. The old woman, she just kept breaking bits of peat and mice kept popping out until she wasn't even thinking anymore. She was just furiously ripping at the chunks. And she took a breath and she looked up and oh no. She'd created an army of mice. And almost in unison, they all turned and they looked towards her pantry. No. There was nothing she could do. Hundreds of mice swarmed over her food. They didn't stop until every last crumb was gone. Now it was her turn to pick up her basket and go begging. Well, she arrived at Mallie's door and it was a wee boy that answered. Please, she said, I've had a terrible mouse infestation. They've eaten all my food. Could you spare anything for a wee old woman? And the boy looked her dead in the eye and he said, how about I give you exactly what you gave us? Absolutely nothing. Before he could close the door, Mallie was behind him. What did I tell you, son? We're not like that. No matter who it is, we would always share with those in need. She invited the old woman in and she told her, take whatever you can carry. If you need any more when you're finished, you only have to ask. As long as I'm alive, you won't go hungry. I hope you enjoyed that story, and that's a message that's worth remembering.